As far as like nootropics, getting into supplements, some of my favorites would be Alpha-GPC as my favorite form of choline.
Awesome.
CDP choline is pretty good too, but I think Alpha-GPC
What
best.
dose would you recommend for, let's say, just a beginner who's not, yeah, just an average
It's
guy?
expensive. It's expensive, but I mean, I love the full dose of 600 milligrams
600.
3 times a day.
Oh, how many times a day? I'm sorry.
3 times a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Welcome to PricePlow.
Welcome to the PricePlow Podcast, powered by pre-workouts. I am incredibly excited and proud to introduce you all to Shawn Wells, who is the formulator at BioTrust and previously was a formulator at Dymatize. And so Shawn is incredibly well respected in the supplement and sports nutrition industry. And so welcome to the show, Shawn.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. So Shawn and I have been talking and chatting, texting a couple times, or a little bit over the last couple of months. And one thing I want to tell everyone right off the bat is that you should just pause this right now. Go onto your favorite social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, and follow him at Zone Halo. So Zone Halo is kind of Shawn's. I guess we could explain exactly what it is. Your side personal brand or whatever it is, but
It is.
and then also Shawn Wells, SHAWN on Facebook. And I just got to say how much I love following your stuff on Facebook and the social medias, because you jump onto Facebook and you got friends arguing about this or that, and you don't want to see that. But then Shawn's always there with an incredibly colorful post about some new supplement or anything. So I just love following you on Facebook. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, in a world of crazy political and religious arguments, it's nice to just talk about science and hopefully not have as many arguments. But yeah,
Absolutely. And if the arguments are there, it's like arguing over the best form of choline or something like that. So
there you go.
those arguments are a little bit more fun to have and a little bit less personal. So Shawn, you've been on a lot of different podcasts and everything, and you often give your background. So I can give a little bit about it. And so you went to UNC Chapel Hill. You have a master's degree in nutrition, I believe, and you also have a minor in sports exercise science or something like that.
Yeah, it's exactly. I got my master's at Chapel Hill, nutritional biochemistry.
Ooh, okay.
I got my RD and a minor in exercise sports science, and then my undergrad was in marketing and information systems with a minor in chemistry.
Right, and yeah, you seem like very involved. With a lot of our followers would absolutely love to hear is that you're one of the 3 patent holders of Teacrine.
Yep.
The awesome caffeine-like stimulant that lasts a lot longer that we have in a lot of our different supplements and pre-workouts, including the pre-workout I'm drinking right now. So, excellent.
Yes. Yeah, Dymatize pre-WO, right?
Yeah. So yeah, since Shawn formerly was with Dymatize, I chose Dymatize's pre-WO as my pre-workout of choice to get me through the rest of the day here. So.
Yeah, I still love that brand. I gave over 3 years of my life to them, and we did hundreds of products between Dymatize itself, Supreme Protein, Advocare, Smoothie King, GNC, Vitamin Shop. We had like a lot of private label stuff. And we crushed it when we were there. A lot of the flavors that exist in Elite Whey and ISO 100 were work that I did, and
Awesome.
with my team. It was an incredible team. So, and Dr. Rob Wildman's still there. Great guy. He's the CSO. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Dymatize still.
Well, great job. Yeah, ISO 100 is like basically untouchable still. So they're doing good even without you. But yeah, I'm sure they miss you over there. And so a lot of times when you give your introduction, you talk about a doctor's visit that kind of changed the whole trajectory of your life. And so I wanted to key in on that, especially because I think a lot of people who follow our channel often are looking for motivation. And I always love that story. So what happened? At what age were you? And like, you had a regular doctor's visit and then things just changed, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I was 20 years old, went to a routine physical that you need before you start each school year. And, this doctor, I was talking to him about all this cool stuff that I'd been reading, creatine and, there's Muscle Media 2000, if you remember. MM2K was like a cool magazine, Bill Phillips and Dan Duchesne and all that kind of stuff at the time. And yeah, creatine had just come out, phosphagain, phosphagen, all that stuff. And it was so exciting. And I was reading Optimum Sports Nutrition by Dr. Michael Colgan, and I loved all this stuff. And like I was getting all these amazing results, training and seeing the benefit of supplements. And I was talking to my doctor about it, and he could see that I was like lighting up over all this stuff. And I was already like magna cum laude, like and I was a National Merit Scholar before that, but I was magna cum laude at Babson, this business specialty school, and I was just planning on going to like some big consulting firm, some cool consulting firm, and just go get your money, like you do business, you go to some big company, you hopefully make six figures, and you're happy. And of course, that isn't true. Happiness has to be where your passion lies. And this doctor like saw my passion, and he said he drew out this lifeline from 20 to 80, and he said, why not be happy between here and here? And I was just like, wow, okay. Like that was like a total paradigm shift for me mentally. And I'll tell you, like, and shortly thereafter, when I went to UNC Greensboro to get my prerequisites so I could get into Chapel Hill, and I had to do 2 straight years, including the winter and summer semesters, 26 credit hours a semester, like just sciences, just crushing. And but when I first got to UNCG and I told him all the stuff that I needed to do, this guy told me, you're a business student, there's no way that you can do this, you should stop this, be realistic, and just pursue business. And I kept that guy in mind every day, and I, got straight A's, got into Chapel Hill, and, here I am now. But I think about, like, those 2 examples of, like, someone gave me my dream, like, literally made it possible, a stranger. Stranger's words, just a small interaction, 1-minute interaction. And then another guy basically could have taken my dreams. If I listened to him, everything could have been gone, that I've now achieved. Could have taken my passions, like my whole life away. And so, just for anyone listening, realize that there's a profound impact that your words have. Like there's people that, we've seen all these suicides lately, famous people you think that, aren't exactly on the fringe, like loners, like, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington and all these people. And they're committing suicide, and like sometimes your words can save that person that day. It can be the difference. Your words can make someone pursue their passion, or can break their dreams. And I definitely like to, I'm into the whole biohacking thing, and I mean, this is a big part of biohacking, is being grateful, mindful meditation. Like knowing your place in the world, being like being a good friend to other people, and certainly not discouraging people, projecting negativity. That's just a sign of insecurity in yourself. So
right. I think the message rolls back to you, because now you're not a doctor like seeing patients, but you're in a position of power like that doctor was, where a doctor is obviously someone you want to listen to. That's why we go to the doctor. And so you listen to that doctor, and it seems like you're incredibly happy for it. And now it seems like you are now in a position of power where you're giving like speeches at all these conferences. You're here on YouTube. You have a lot of different people inviting you to the podcast, asking you to help. And so I think people need to realize, especially when they get onto a more public stage, that their negativity can really, really resonate. But or their positivity can really, really resonate, and it's important to have the proper balance. We can't be. I don't think we can all be sunshine all the time, but there's got to be like that. What is it, 7-to-1 ratio or something like that, where most of the stuff has to be positive. And like when I start getting snotty on Facebook, I actually think like, oh man, someone like Shawn Wells might read this, and and I don't want that, because I like have such high respect for you, and I see you putting out so much good, awesome material, and obviously, we can't all love everything, but the way that, you're in a position where people listen to you now, and same goes for our channel and everything. So I need to make it clear that when you start putting yourself out there, you need to project the right you, and you definitely do that. And so
Thank you. One of the things that I've tried to do too, because I knew how difficult it was for me to get to where I am. Like I had to carve my own path. I mean, there was no sports nutrition degree when I was coming up. Like I took exercise science, I took nutrition, and nutrition was just clinical, and it was epidemiological. Like like water issues in third world countries and stuff, where, what we were talking about, all interesting stuff, but it wasn't, what I wanted in terms of my passion. So I had to carve all that out. But now I try and like mentor people all the time. I take people into my house. I, give them, room and board. I have them train with me for weeks. And, I don't have like, I don't make any, money off them. I don't get any benefit from it, except that I'm just helping them. Like, I just really want to see someone do well, and maybe me pass on, like, the blessings that I've been given. I think, with all these people that have at different points in my life come into my life and really helped me. So I'm trying to do that myself. So I think that's important to take someone on to mentor. It also like helps you, I guess, strengthen your own resolve on your own passions. And it also helps you understand all these things that to be true. Like, you learn them better yourself. Like, I play volleyball and basketball. Like, when I teach someone volleyball, like out on the sand volleyball courts, I see someone who's pretty good and I give them some pointers. It helps me reinforce it for myself when you teach someone. So that's the great thing about being a teacher, being about a mentor, is doing that. And I think, for anyone listening, hopefully, they can do that as well. Anything you're good at, try and help other people at.
Definitely. And it's like once you can confidently teach something that you can also do, it really just pulls it all into one big, it completes the circle a little bit. That's cool. And so, yeah, you're up in Dallas. I definitely want to meet in person at some point, because I'm not too far away. We'll get a real life podcast going at some point, but here we are for the time being. Just so everyone knows, it is Sunday, October 8th. Of 2017. So in case you're catching this a little bit later, that's where we're at right now. So Shawn and I, we were introduced through a mutual friend and kind of business associate regarding the keto diet. But there's so many things we could talk about. I really did want to focus on optimizing brain performance. Kind of today, talking about either with nootropics, or you were already kind of getting into mindful meditation. On a personal and / kind of selfish note, I'm having some problems with time management a little bit, so maybe like understanding how you do best with that would work. So a lot of things, but I would kind of like to go through how you perfect your day and what you do to stay on top of your game, because it seems like you've just been on this trajectory where you're just like going, and everything is like constantly improving, and you're sharp. And so right now it seems like you're kind of this unstoppable mental force. And so I'd like to steal a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you to say. But one of the most important things is that you are pursuing your passion, because there's guys that say, well, I want to be, kind of what I was alluding to before. Guys say, I want to be a doctor, or gals, that I want to be a doctor because of the money, because of the fame, or I'll achieve this level of status. You will burn out. If those are the reasons you're pursuing it, you will burn out. You need to pursue whatever you're good at. Whether it's yo-yo, or martial arts, or video gaming, or whatever. I mean, now in this day and age, you can make a career out of anything. Anything. If you're passionate at it, you're the best at it, then go at that thing full steam and find a way to make a career out of it. And that's what I've done. I've become the world's greatest formulator because it's my true passion. Like, when I'm not formulating or, at work, like, I'm studying, I'm working on other things, and I love it. I'm always reading about it, and I'm always teaching about it, and I just enjoy it. So for me, I mean, that's one of the biggest competitive advantages, is that I love it. And even if I wasn't getting paid for it, this is what I was doing. Back before, when I was a clinical dietitian, that's what I was doing. I was, on bodybuilding.com message boards, and, going to Arnold and the Olympia, and, going to the ISSN conferences, and, whatever I could to learn. I was so passionate about it. So I basically not only give myself an extra 30 or 40 hours a week because I'm passionate over someone who isn't, but even in those hour for hour, I'm probably twice as effective because I'm focused. I enjoy
so into it.
So that makes a huge difference. That it's just hard to compare someone else who isn't passionate.
Right. So no amount of drugs or whatever is going to make you love your consulting gig or whatever would have happened in that other lifeline that you did not take.
Right.
No matter what, you wouldn't have been as into it.
Right. Exactly.
But,
so
okay, I wanted to go back real quickly. For the people who are listening on audio, eventually we're going to get these podcasts on audio. When you said world's greatest formulator, you did put air quotes up there. And so I believe that's a quote from Jacob Wilson who said that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Just making sure everyone got that. Hang on one second.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just moving the window a little bit. Now it's going to look a little better on YouTube. Okay, so you're incredibly passionate about what you're into, but they're going to have like 5,000 people listen to this or whatever the number is going to be. Can 5,000 people they're all really into nootropics, for instance? Can they all get into that though and make a business out of it? Is there some, everyone wants to be a rock star. Everyone wants to get paid to play video games. Is that possible? Like, can we all be able to do that?
I think it is possible, but I think everyone's too distracted. Not only are they not pursuing their passion, but they're not pursuing anything very well. They believe in the lie of multitasking. And there's been study after study after study that shows that you cannot truly multitask.
Amen.
You can do one thing well, and as soon as you add another thing, you stop having the ability to filter. So that means you hear everything coming at you, and your mind stops having the ability to say that's worthwhile, that's not worthwhile. So if you're like trying to work on the computer and type something up, and in the background is the Kardashians or something, it's going into your head. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to truly multitask. Yes, there's people that have more brain capacity than others, but that's what it is. Like they're just more intelligent, potentially in certain areas, in certain ways. But most people, for the most part, cannot multitask. So it's kind of a myth.
How does music play into that? When you're working and you're getting into the zone, do you turn off all music? Do you have what's your?
Yeah, I think that varies from person to person. With music, if it's something that you sit there and think about the lyrics, or you're someone that thinks about the drum beat, or pulls apart elements of the song that you're listening to, then it's distracting you.
Right.
So if you're someone that just music is a background noise, and maybe it allows you to focus, and that varies from person to person, then it's fine. I mean, it's kind of like maybe me listening to white noise.
Gotcha.
So it just depends on, you can judge that yourself.
Right.
If you're one of those people. But for me, I do listen pretty intently to lyrics. I memorize lyrics extremely well. I know lyrics to thousands
Really?
of songs. So for me, which is an impressive feat, I get told all the time because I know all these lyrics, but for me, I can't listen to a song and be very effective.
Gotcha.
Doing work at the same time because I'm pulling out all these elements to the song.
Gotcha. That's funny. I'm complete opposite. I don't know the words to anything, which is good because I listen to a lot of crazy death metal. But I need consistent. I'm a drums and bass guy. I need consistent beats. Otherwise, when I go through I like a lot of complex music. But if I'm trying to work during complex music, all the tempo shifts they throw me out of the zone, and so I just can't do that. I need to either turn it off or listen to really basic stuff. And then that allows me to get some work done. Now, on the back to the task of multitasking, would you agree that women are better multitaskers than men for the women out there, or is it a completely different thing? Are we catering this conversation to guys specifically, or does it matter?
No, I've looked at that too. There's a few studies of that. I understand why you're saying that. Like women,
I've heard. I mean, I'm not a woman, so I don't know.
Women tend to be better with liberal arts, like English studies, kind of more abstract things, emotional, more complex kind of scenarios.
Yeah,
That's not a negative at all. Like they're very good with more complex scenarios that involve emotional intelligence, whereas, and these are just tendencies. These are not just truisms. Because there's plenty of women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, whatever. But men tend to be more, like you said, more just focused and, math and engineering or whatever, very one-dimensional. But I mean, even still, when multiple things are going on, that's a type of like, I think it's more what we're talking about with women would be more like a spatial type of thinking.
Gotcha.
Versus, and like kind of weaving complex things out versus having multiple things thrown at you. I think there's a difference there. But I mean, it's possible a woman would be slightly better at multitasking, but I think the multitasking lie is too persistent in our culture, and people are distracted. And, getting back to the ability to be effective, you can't be distracted. Like an hour of focused work is worth 10 hours of distracted work. So, people, it kind of goes back to like
is that a stat, like for real? 1 to 10 hours, or is that just you saying?
No, I'm just throwing that out.
Okay, but I agree. It's like there's some number there, and
yeah. And if you look at like the Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, I mean, that's what a lot of that was. And that was an abstract number chosen by him that, like, I guess he split tested and that one tested the best.
Oh my.
But it's, you can get caught up in all that stuff. Like, but the point of the book was that, he did things like he only checked his email twice a day, right? Instead of like following that rabbit down the hole all day long, like in you're a slave to like the Bing, right? And then, he would bundle all of his phone calls for the afternoon, and he would walk while he's, taking his phone calls, and it's not spread out. And the first thing he'd do like, like a gratitude journal and, plan out his day. Then he would do like a major task for the day, like spend 2 hours just working on one thing, not checking email, not getting distracted, not chasing a fire. And then you're accomplished. Now the rest of your day, you can do some of these other things. You have a sense of accomplishment. If you get into work and you just start doing your emails and you start chasing fires, your drug is cortisol and dopamine and serotonin and caffeine and sugar to kind of fuel your day, and it's just this downward spiral, and then you're exhausted and you didn't accomplish much of anything.
So is that what okay, so first off, I realized how much better I am when I close the inbox. One thing that's been happening is our YouTube channel's gotten more popular. The YouTube comments were coming into my inbox. And I finally, like 2 days ago, set a filter to just put them into a bucket that I check once a day. And that has helped so much. But I don't even let the phone ding or anything. But yeah, the working out of the inbox is kind of a necessary thing at times. But I find myself not moving the ball forward on the important stuff. So I fully agree. So is that a philosophy that you follow? Like, how does your workflow set up throughout the day and everything? Are you checking the email twice or?
Yeah, I mean, there's times when you're in a corporate environment that you can't do that. But at the very least, you can set it up so that you only check your emails like after you've knocked out some big task. Another thing that makes me feel quite accomplished that I like as far as energizing me and then, getting to work and feeling like a rock star is working out in the morning, every morning. So, versus working out in the evening. If you get that done in the morning, you take your shower, after your workout, you have your breakfast and then you head off to work. You've already knocked out something that's, impressive. You've done something for yourself. And, that's very different than rolling out of bed, feeling exhausted, going straight to work, fighting traffic. Then you get to, work. And again, the emails and the fires and, your whole day is like crazy. And then you're going to work out at the end of that, like feel exhausted.
Right.
You can feel so much more accomplished if you put that at the beginning. I think it does set a tone for the day. So, doing the big project at the beginning, working out in the morning, that helps quite a bit. And for me, some of the other things that I do, as far as my morning routine, I like to do Elevate, which are like brain games similar to like Lumosity, but I think it's better. And then I like to do Headspace, which is a meditation app, really good. Another one is Calm. But even if you have Spotify, there's some playlists on Spotify that have meditation playlists, be it music or guided meditation. There's a lot of cool stuff on Spotify. And then, I do like a pre-workout that's I use the Genius pre-workout actually.
The Genius brand, yeah. So yeah, this is the PricePlow pre-workout podcast. So that's actually interesting. And you told me you've never met those guys or anything, but you just like the way it's formulated. And it's funny because we've done a little bit of blogging on their stuff, and they seem like really friendly guys. So that's just cool. That shout out to Genius.
Yeah, no, it is. They're solid formulations. I believe in transparent labeling.
Mm-hmm.
I believe less is more. They're the study-backed doses, the right forms. I love the name of the product. I mean, and I don't do caffeine. So
yeah, I didn't realize that. Have you never been on caffeine, or is that a personal
thing? I did
thing?
when I was younger, but I feel like I really got burnt out from like the whole like Rip Fuel days. Ephedrine and caffeine. I think I just demolished myself. And for me, I now get like very anxious. I get arrhythmias.
Oh wow.
The whole thing from just caffeine. I can't even sleep at night, even if I drink a soda in the morning.
Wow. Okay.
It really messes with me. So, yeah, I try and avoid that now. So, yeah, I love the Genius product, and then I add a scoop of BioTrust Metabo Greens, which is just a product I formulated. It tastes great. It's got chlorella, spirulina, but it's also got that Spectra in it, which I think is a really cool ingredient. It helps with cerebral oxygenation. So like it's funny, like I've had people like tell me they think it's caffeinated. It's not. So I like doing this blend of Genius and Metabo Greens, and then I hit the gym, and then I have my keto breakfast afterwards, which is just bacon and eggs and butter.
Same here. Okay, so you're coming off of some sort of a fast, I'm assuming, and you're working out towards the end of your fast with a bit of a pre-workout in the greens.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, and so and how long are you fasting there then? Are you cleaning
This is my cat that's getting.
Oh, you got a cat! I heard a cat meowing down here too. That's hilarious.
My cat was actually getting on the camera there.
That's great.
I have my dog here as well. I can show you. There's my.
Oh, hey guys! Oh, nice.
Cat.
Perfect.
They like to hang out with
You're
me.
just chilling, huh?
Yeah, that's part of my Sunday biohack.
Nice. You got it. Yeah, animals are the best. It's. I think that's part of a biohack that can make you feel better too. I'm sure there's tons of research on it that you've probably read.
I think just the whole there is research on touch, and that we need at least, I think it's 6 interactions of touch a day to feel human and not feel isolated. I used to work in nursing homes, and I would go out of my way to touch the residents there, just on the shoulder.
Awesome.
Say, hey, Mrs. Jones, how you doing today? And leave your hand on their shoulder, and you see them like physically light up, and especially with them, like they feel so isolated. Like people think they're old and dirty and discarded, really, like just diseased and worthless.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, what's the absolute worst punishment you can give to someone? And it is, what's that?
Yeah, isolation.
Yeah, solitary confinement. Like even in a prison with the biggest dirtbags in the world, it is a punishment to isolate them from that. Like that just shows how much we are socially connected creatures, and so for those of us who work home alone, it's often important to get out, go to the gym, go to the pool, like do whatever. And do you think that animals, though, for some people, is that enough of a I don't know what the word is.
It helps a lot, especially if you are elderly. You think about those scenarios where like a widow, the spouse has passed on. I mean, when I would see them come to the nursing home and they had to leave their pet at home, it was devastating for them. I mean, that was their whole world. It was literally their second spouse, if you will, and it's devastating. And when you just hold your pet and you pet them, we call them pet because we pet them, right? I mean, there's a type of therapy there too. Like it's therapeutic to just go through that motion of petting something and feeling their fur, and it's just relaxing. It's it's something that eases you.
Or Okay, yeah. So getting back to we were on the question I was asking was you have an intermittent fast or maybe you're not totally doing an intermittent fast, but you have like a fasted window. You wake up, training, empty stomach minus the greens and the Genius, and then you eat. So would you recommend? I've been kind of tinkering with that, and you're the person who actually got me into the deeper intermittent fast, which helped me get deeper into ketosis, which is what I needed to do for my experiments. That's kind of how we were introduced, talking about that. And so thank you, because that's definitely worked, and I got like way deep into ketosis, and now I'm starting to be able to tinker back in with some pre-workout carbs when I want to, and so that's and stay in ketosis. So that's been a really nice thing. But what is your timeline on that? Are you into like doing a deeper kind of fast before that training, or are you kind of?
Yeah, I oscillate. Sometimes I like to do the 16-8, where you're not eating for 16 hours and you're doing 8 on.
Right.
Sometimes I'll do the 1 day of fasting a week, which there's new data on. That's pretty compelling in terms of it being like a reset for your immune system, activating growth factors.
Is that human data?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to post up a link.
Yeah. And then, it's really cool. Again, I think fasting is key, like you were just saying, to getting deeper into ketosis.
Right.
With nutritional ketosis, especially if you're eating, throughout the day, you might be sitting there at like 0.5 to 1 millimole, kind of thing. And some of the magic, and I'll say this with a caveat of you really shouldn't chase these numbers, and we talked about that.
Right, yeah. It's just part of my experiment, so I wanted to at least get to 1.0, and I easily did that.
It's nice to have some data, but also realize that with blood BHB, the marker for ketones that you might be checking on a ketogenic diet using a glucometer, that there's varying levels of adaptation. There's varying levels of utilization of the BHB. So, you may be using the heck out of it, and you may have a kind of lower BHB, but you may be deeper into ketosis than someone that has a higher BHB.
Right.
But, we're just going by this number. But if we are to generalize, then I would say the magic kind of happens around, maybe 2.5 to, 3.5, somewhere in there, like millimoles, like that you really only typically get with, some level of fasting.
Right.
So that kind of puts you into the deeper state of ketosis. And
so what did you mean by magic? And getting back to the whole brain performance thing, it seems like if you're like, let's say, a Buddhist monk who is doing some extreme fasting, I was starting to equate like that fasted state with a spiritual kind of thing.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure if that was the magic you were referring to or not, but
yeah, it is. It's definitely a cognitive awareness, alertness. I think that, I think we all have varying levels of glucose intolerance. You remember when you were a kid, and you used to get like super energized, like off of candy and soda. Like, who gave them the Snickers, or who gave them the Coca-Cola? Because they're running around like an idiot, right? And screaming. And now when we have a Snickers, now when we have a Coca-Cola, we're just oh, we need caffeine. So it's kind of a downward spiral. And Alzheimer's is really type 3 diabetes.
That's what I read about that, and I thought that was more like a postulated kind of thing. Are you pretty confident in that, like, diagnosis in a way?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a glucose intolerance in the brain, and the same thing happens with. Is that the cat?
Yeah, he came up here. He heard your cat, I guess.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm just worried he's going to step on the keyboard over that's controlling things, so he's jumped. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I apologize.
No, it's okay. The same thing happens with traumatic brain injury. In the area of the concussion, wherever the insult was to the brain, there is actually a glucose intolerance. It's having difficulty taking up the glucose and creating energy. So there's an insufficient cellular energy state that's happening, ICE. That's the acronym for that. And it creates a problem. Ketones bypass that issue by actually bypassing the secondary complex of the electron transport chain. And so it overcomes like mitochondrial dysfunction. And there isn't like a ketone intolerance issue. So what's nice about that is for anyone, I think anyone will get a certain level of alertness or cognitive enhancement. And I also think that might tie into like, think about like if you were starving for days on end,
right?
And which would have been normal, which would have been normal in evolution, right? Like we would have gone a day, 2 days, 3 days without eating. That would have been normal before all this, food availability
Absolutely,
stuff.
before agriculture and all that, really.
Right. So, it was probably key to be as alert as possible when we're trying to save ourselves and find, and hunt down food. Like you don't almost need as much alertness when you have glucose, right? Like when you're eating like regular plants and, like there's availability, let's say during the summer versus like maybe during the winter when you're like scavenging to find something, you might need more alertness, right? So it's an interesting idea that these ketones, maybe there's some evolutionary purpose there, but I think we are meant to be dual fuel. I'm not like some people get so angry about keto like one way or another. Like some of the keto people are like, you have to be keto 100% of the time or else you're an idiot, and then other people are like, glucose all the way. Like, how can you ever, be keto? All the data is supporting carbs for energy and, so, but for me, I think we're meant to be dual fuel. I think that's how we were evolved. I don't see it as a conflict. I know that carbs are not necessary. But I don't think that they're not needed. I think they're a tool for an athlete, for someone who's a biohacker. And so, I train all week long without carbs. I train high intensity interval training. It's very difficult, but that's where like a lot of the adaptations take place, mitochondrial biogenesis, and some of the things that are happening, like to your, telomeres, SERT genes, and, some of the cool anti-aging stuff that's happening. The MCT transporters being upregulated so you can take up more BHB. A lot of cool things are happening as a result of that.
Okay, cool. That was a great discussion. A lot of different directions to go with. I definitely noticed. So yeah, my opinion is kind of like that. In my opinion, first off, you have to like kind of cast aside the appeal to nature fallacy, and I personally believe that the nature's true way for our bodies is better almost the majority of the time. And so when people, kind of say like, oh, well, cavemen died at the age of 30, it's like, well, yeah, but, had they broken their arm, they didn't have a hospital or a sling to put it in. That could have like totally ended them. So, there's both sides of that argument. But to me, I always see it, the more I've been into this, and when I get deep into ketosis or when I'm into that fast, I am focused. There's definitely no problem with it. I think that a more natural state was kind of being in ketosis, but then when you do find the carbohydrates, it's kind of like party time, or like that's when it's like high energy burst. Like you get the sugar high. Like if I were, a caveman, I found a pot of honey. Like that's an incredible find, but we all know that it's just gonna give you some insanely awesome feeling, but eventually it's gonna come crashing down. And I think like most humans anymore, or at least most Western dieters, are kind of in the opposite mode, where we're always glucose, and then not nearly getting into a fasted enough state in the mornings. And then like we've been pushed this whole breakfast thing, which I'm not fully on board with for some people, especially if you're trying to get into the zone. The first thing you do is rock yourself with more carbohydrates. And while that feels good, you're gonna need more, and you're gonna need more. And so, in my opinion, I think we're just like upside down. At least for a lot of us, people like myself, who focus better when there's a little bit less food in the belly there. So that's how it works for me, at least.
And then don't forget about adding dessert, like just like at dinner, and certainly we're in like a hypercaloric state, and we're under exercising, and all those things are definitely disastrous for sure. And then the availability of highly processed, high glycemic food on top of it. Yeah. I mean, it's not just carbs, but it's just crap carbs.
Right.
So just sugar.
So let's say, I don't know if you offer consultant services or anything, but let me pretend that you do. And I said, okay, Shawn, my name's Mike. I'm the CEO of this startup that's doing really well. I know that I have a big project underway. Let's say I need like 6 to 9 months of just pure mental awesomeness. What are the steps that you would take me on now? Like, considering the average listener on this podcast will most likely be someone who's already working out at least 4 or 5 times a week or so, and they kind of know nutrition. Like, where do you go from there? What are the next steps to really get me like in the zone for 9 months? Like, kind of, I need to really dial into this project. What would you say?
Well, it would be some of those things for biohacking that aren't supplement or diet or exercise related, like what we were just talking about before. I think mindful meditation, doing like some brain activation exercises like a Lumosity or Elevate, taking the time at the end of your day to take stock of your day and how you did. So I think starting your day and ending your day with that kind of journaling is actually important. So you have a sense of how to build your day and how you finish your day.
Okay.
And what you're thankful for. I think all those things are really important. And I think figuring out what your distractions are, like we talked about, so you can be focused. You're going to gain so much productivity by creating like some level of focus, like the 80-20 rule kind of thing, getting all that noise out. There's so much that's distracting you, social networks, emails, all these things that are going on, like there's apps that like check how many times a day you're looking at your phone, how many times you're picking it up and putting it down. You'd be amazed at what that number is. It's in the hundreds for most people.
Wow. Okay.
So if you can minimize some of that, if you can again take that, what we were talking about with Tim Ferriss, like whatever that number is, it doesn't have to be like 2. It has to be half of what you're doing now. Just half. And that's a big game changer right there, to allow you to focus. If you can think about trying to write a paper, doing a great job at writing some article, you can't have like an email popping up every 5 minutes. You can't check your social, with all these push notifications. Hey, someone commented on your thread on Facebook. Hey, someone just posted on Instagram. I mean, it's too much. It's distraction all day long. You won't accomplish much. I think doing the hydrating well is important, certainly throughout the day. I like high-intensity interval training like we were talking about. I like some level of fasting, be it intermittent fasting or 1 day a week or the every other day fasting or whatever works for you. There's a variety of ways to achieve it. I think doing a ketogenic diet for some period of time, I think, is advantageous. There's some people that are just highly insulin sensitive, that are great exercisers, that have never had any level of insulin insensitivity, and maybe they don't need it. But I think it's worth experimenting with for people and adding, again, at some point, the intermittent fasting, and then also maybe playing around with MCTs, or one step better could be caprylic acid, octanoic acid, C8 is actually about 3 times better than MCTs at raising exogenous ketones, and then maybe endogenous ketones.
Right.
And then maybe playing with exogenous ketones as well. Those are getting popular, BHB salts, and seeing what those do for you. I know that those work well for me, feeling more alert.
Are you working out with them at all, or is that like when are you using them? Because I was taking them during training, but still kind of tinkering around, or when I eat carbs.
Yeah, I don't work out with them because I have the other 2 things that I was talking about, the Genius and the greens. But I do use it when I play competitive sand volleyball, and sometimes I actually take it with a sugar. So that goes back to I adapt it in. I get in and out of ketosis very quickly. I don't know that you can do this right off the bat. I would recommend that people that are going to mess around with ketosis, that they give it a chance, stay on it full on, make some adaptations, maybe 3 months down the road. Then you can start playing with CKD, TKD, targeted cyclical.
Agreed. I'm finally getting to that point. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I like to do the targeted one only when I'm playing sand volleyball, is then I can play what I feel like, several hours in a very dynamic environment. It's very difficult in the heat. So, I add carbs and I add ketones. I get the best of both.
But so you're playing volleyball in the Texas summers on the sand?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, that's one thing we actually haven't talked about. I lived out in the beaches of LA for 6 years, and that's kind of my whole social scene was all sand volleyball too. But out here, I'm not playing out here. So respect to anyone playing in Texas in this heat. Yeah. It's
tough. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're drenched, and I don't know if people can appreciate what playing, 2s in the sand is like, but it's very exhaustive, very, very dynamic. It's definitely HIIT style workouts when you're going up for a block, you're serving, you're diving, it's just constant moving, jumping, blocking. It's very involved. So after that, and by the way, like for me, it's just like what you were saying. It's like caffeine when I take carbs now, because I'm so keto adapted, and the whole week I'm training like HIIT style and fasting and all that, like with no carbs, that when I do add something like sugar,
it's a rocket fuel.
It's a rocket. Yeah, it's intense.
Someone's gonna nail that. I think one of you posted that one of your friends already broke a record for an elite running. It was an Ironman kind of event doing that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the 100-miler. Yeah, it's pretty insane.
It makes sense though. Like now that I'm more into this, like if you rely on carbs, you need to keep re-upping the carbs. But if you have fat to break down on your own body, then if you're keto adapted enough, you have your fuel source on you, and you just need to occasionally maybe add in some extra stuff. But yeah, using the dual fuel source, I absolutely love that I have the option, and a lot of people don't get to experience this whole other alternative fuel, and it definitely helps with my focus for sure. I fully believe that, although I don't think I've ever had like a ketone drink that made me feel all in the zone. I think I get a little bit more of a physical help from that so far, but I'm not sure where the science will end up landing there.
Yeah, there's some varying abilities of these drinks to deliver the right dose, the right type of BHB. I've experimented with a lot of them, and there's a huge variance in terms of my numbers when I've experimented with them. But I don't feel like calling anyone out on this.
No, I think I know what you're talking about, though.
My results were, but and then on top of that, what else I would recommend? I would recommend sleep hygiene is massive. I mean, just even 1 hour less of sleep has a huge impact on your immune system, on your cognitive function, on your lifespan, on ability to or risk of disease, including diabetes, coronary heart disease. I mean, just down the line, obesity. Everything goes up in terms of disease risk and mortality risk when you're not sleeping. And that can even just be 1 hour less. And so, again, if you go back to what we're adapted for, we're not adapted for blue light in our face right before we go to sleep. If you have a phone that you're looking at while you're in your bed or a tablet, stop that.
You're waking yourself back up. Or what exactly happens with the whole blue light before bed?
You stop producing melatonin. Right. So it's actually blocking that release of melatonin. So I love to do blue light first thing in the morning. Especially during the winter when you get up and it's pitch black outside, or overcast days. I definitely get seasonal affective disorder. I'm very prone to the dark days. Especially if it's rainy for several days. Like I get very depressed. So the blue light is very effective for me, like the Philips blue light, first thing in the morning. But at night it's better to turn off your devices. If you have Apple iOS, then I think they have night shift. I think in Android it's night light, but there's options like I use Flux Flux on my computer. That's free. So all those things are free to use, but they can shift the color away from the blue light. That helps some, but you're still getting light radiated to your face. And I would definitely recommend that you reduce your exposure to that, especially if you think about with a phone in a very dark environment that's very bright and it's right here at your eyes. Or even worse, one thing that scares me is the new phenomenon of the VR glasses, where they're putting the phone right here, right on their eyes at full brightness so it looks cool. I mean, if you're doing that in the afternoon or evening, my goodness, like that's definitely going to impair the melatonin production for sure. So that can definitely have an impact. I mean, I don't think people take sleep hygiene enough, being serious enough about it. But then as far as like nootropics, getting into supplements, some of my favorites would be Alpha-GPC as my favorite form of choline. CDP choline is pretty good too, but Alpha-GPC.
What dose would you recommend for, let's say, just a beginner who's not Yeah, just the average
It's
guy.
expensive. It's expensive, but I mean, I love the full dose of 600 milligrams
600.
3 times a day.
Oh, how many times a day? I'm sorry.
3 times a day.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've never
And
done
they've shown that if you are not eating eggs or taking a choline supplement daily, you're not getting enough choline.
Oh, yeah, you're in trouble. So, yeah, I eat 4 eggs a day right now.
Mhm.
Would you still recommend 600 milligrams 3 times a day?
I do. Well, I mean, what's cool? So what's cool? One of the cool things about I love this about supplementation and optimizing your health. Besides stimulating your health, like stimulating energy. If you're using supplements to optimize yourself, then what's cool with like something like methylcobalamin, which is another favorite of mine, nootropically, which is the active coenzymated form of B12, right. Or things like Alpha-GPC. They actually help your alertness, and they help you sleep.
Really? So that third dose of Alpha-GPC is not going to keep you up?
No, it won't. But like during the day, you'll feel more sharp, right? And it has to do with dopamine release. But you'll feel more sharp. But at night, you'll sleep better, and you'll have more growth hormone release, more strength, more recovery. They've shown all that in studies. But the same with methylcobalamin. I feel like cognitively enhanced when I take it, but I also sleep great when I take it in the evening. Like you have better sleep. And so I think people tend to think of things along the spectrum of stimulation where, it's great to get energy, but you can't go to sleep.
Right.
But when you're actually looking at, biohacking your health and your cognitive function, then, it can be both. And that's a really cool thing. Let me think of some other ones that I really like.
Yeah, so the methylcobalamin, that's kind of usually my litmus test for if I agree with a multivitamin or not. You could tell to me, if they really care or not.
Yes.
They're going to put in the good B12. And that's like the first ingredient I go to when I'm looking at a multi. And then I, of course, look at vitamin D and decide if I need to add more. I usually take 5,000 IUs extra of that. Right now, I just recently switched to the Garden of Life Raw ones. It's a food-based vitamin D. And I don't know, I've been feeling pretty good with it. So,
yeah, chances are with vitamin D, you'll need to take one additionally because the oil form is so much better at raising blood levels of vitamin D, cholecalciferol. That the dry form is just not that effective. So typically in a dry multivitamin, like a tablet or a capsule, the vitamin D, no matter what the dose says on the side, it's just not that effective at raising blood levels like an oil-based one would be. And ideally, you take that oil-based vitamin D with other oil to enhance its absorption, or like a fatty meal. So like if you're, eating like a high-fat meal, or you're, maybe you take your fish oil with your vitamin D, that might be ideal. I like high DHA fish oil. Big fan of that. As far as like some of the non-dietary supplement type things, I do like Nootropics. That's one of my favorite race tams.
Right, we have a big article on that.
Yeah, very effective at a very low dose.
Well, yeah, what's your dosing there? 10, 20, 30?
30. I think I've worked my way up to 30.
Of course.
But for anyone trying it, start out at 10 and just see what your tolerance is.
I think the most negative thing with that is people can't super feel it. Like, everyone wants to have that feel it pop right away, and I think Nootropics is kind of it has a longer build up kind of period where you have you make some brain gains over time.
I agree, and you need to take your choline with it because it does deplete choline. So some people, I think, feel burnt out on the race tams, and that's a big reason why they're not taking the cholines, and they're mixing it all with caffeine and doing their usual stimulation and lack of sleep stuff. So. I think some other things I like: NuVigil, ProVigil. Those are very effective.
Now, if you were going to take some of that, would you get rid of some of the other supplement-based stuff, or are you just adding this to this one huge monster stack?
Yeah, I might not take the Nootropics.
Okay.
And then when I've used microdosed LSD.
And that was one thing I even hinted at our first podcast, that we were going to talk about that. We are going to get to that. I wanted to go back to way earlier. You were talking about mindful meditation. What exactly does that mean to you, and how long would you do that for? Like, it seems like we're throwing a lot of things in the day to be doing, and I'm like running out of time between the exercise and the cooking and the mindful meditation and the journaling and everything. I'm running out of time to work, it almost feels like, but that's where you need to like not have your phone out apparently. But where does the mindful meditation come in, and how does it work for you?
Well, that's a great point, though, about if you're doing these things, if you're making, I use like a list in like Google Keep or something like that.
Google Keep, okay.
I think there's like a Wonder List. There's what are some of the other? There's like
is there Evernote, or is that something?
Evernote, exactly. That's the other one I was thinking. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, whatever you like, it's fine. But making lists are very important. Anyone that's successful is making lists. And actually, the journaling is really making lists. And the 5-minute journal is making a list of things that you're grateful for, and then how you're going to approach your day. And then if you did, in fact, do those things that you wanted to do. So that's important. But I think all these things that we're talking about, like my brain games is about 10 minutes.
Okay.
My mindful meditation can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes.
So what do? You just sit down with the music on, or the Spotify app, or do you lay down and do it? Like whatever works best?
Yeah, a variety of things. Now that I've done the guided meditation, like I feel like I can do it anytime, and that's what they talk about in Headspace. Like you don't need to be in the perfect, place. Like you can be driving and have mindful meditation. You can be, in your office and have mindful meditation. I like to obviously do it first thing in the morning. And whenever you're like focused on gratitude and you're not distracted, and it is a quiet environment without much noise, then you can find that place. But it's it's about achieving different brainwave states, and when you're distracted, you're not in the right state to feel grateful, to feel at peace, to feel that zen that really lowers your cortisol, lowers your blood pressure, all these kinds of things that really puts you in an optimal state to achieve for the day. So yes, like there are some things that I'm saying that take a little time out of your day, but I think when you find places to remove distractions,
right,
that you can insert these things in, and you'll be amazed that one, getting rid of distractions, and then two, adding in things that help you focus, help you optimize, and help you achieve, you're going to see a radical difference in what you can do.
It's like a streamlining process where we got to stop being chickens with our heads cut off and dial in. Like, the 6 to 9 month project I need to be working on. If I cut out a couple distractions, I may know a little bit less about a couple small time things, but this one huge thing I'm working on will propel the business further. And that's what I really need to focus on, and stop screwing around with the small stuff, or let CJ handle the YouTube comments, for instance. And so that makes sense for sure. Okay, excellent. Now, when we first originally started exchanging emails, though, you said, I'm all interested into like the keto diet, which we were talking about, and blue light, and I was like, oh my, I've been reading about that too. And sometimes I'm guilty as charged with the blue light, but you try to stay very aware of hitting the phone before bed. And then you mentioned microdosing LSD, and I was like, whoa. So, so I have read a little bit about that since, and I did originally see it on a Hacker News featured it. There's some Silicon Valley guys were kind of talking about it. What's your experience with it? What do you think? And I'd love to hear where you think that's going to go, and how you have used that to your advantage. And I have a lot of questions. So what's your introduction to LSD microdosing?
Yeah, well, like I had been reading about it from all my biohacking mentors, whether they know they're my mentors or not. Like Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Ben Pekulski, all my heroes, if you will, were all talking about this stuff, and giving a competitive advantage. And what's cool about that is, when I grew up, drugs were, don't do drugs.
Right.
Drugs are for hippies. Drugs are for losers. I did alcohol in college, and still have an occasional drink. But that was the only thing I really abused, was alcohol. And I had never really done any type of drug. But now, I'm understanding more about, Ben Greenfield's a very competitive athlete. Tim Ferriss is a very accomplished investor and successful author. Dave Asprey is a successful entrepreneur, in Silicon Valley. And, Ben Pekulski, the most popular bodybuilder and, starting up several businesses. And
Absolutely.
I mean, all these guys are, highly accomplished, high achievers. So like when they tell me, hey, this is something to look at, like, well, this is really shifting a paradigm in my head. And the other thing I've obviously learned is, that it's all about the dose, right? The poisons in the dose or, what have you, that it's very different to talk about microdosed, and I'm not even saying full dosed LSD is necessarily bad. There's certainly maybe opportunities for that in the right scenarios to be very helpful.
Yeah, I'd say if it was guided, and well, you can get into that if you want, but
right, yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But this is 1/10 the dose, or even 1/10 what some would call like a heroic dose. So it's very very low dose, and it's similar to like saying like, I'm having one drink of red wine versus 10 glasses of red wine, right? It's very different to talk about those two things. We know that one drink of red wine or beer or one shot is actually cardiovascularly friendly for you, beneficial, especially with red wine, maybe with the polyphenols and resveratrol and all that. But all those have heart health benefits versus 10 drinks that wouldn't, potentially. So it's an interesting way to think about that. It isn't just the same thing. So, there is no trip, there is no hallucination at 1/10 the dose. What I had happen, and I will say, one, it's illegal. Two, I would really want to find out the good source, and I had a very trusted person send me some that I really enjoyed.
Did you test it at all, or there's different reagents you can test?
Really trust this person.
Gotcha.
This is one of the better minds in the industry for this stuff. So luckily, I have like really good connections. So,
right.
What's cool about it is my experience was a greater level of clarity, confidence. I felt like I had a really great night's sleep. Things connected faster. I definitely felt the ability to focus easier and drown out those distractions. So,
what time were you taking it? Like, and how do you what was that?
First thing in the morning, same as if I took like Provigil or Nuvigil.
Okay, and so how did you measure out the doses, or maybe your supplier had that? But it seems like it's like a 10 microgram kind of dose or something. I don't have a microgram scale here, and if I did, I don't think I would trust it unless it was incredibly expensive. So how did you approach that?
I didn't weigh it out. It was already weighed out for me.
Oh, okay.
I trust this person.
Cool.
To be dead on accurate. This is a very, very, very trusted source.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, so the experience was very. I'd say it's like Nuvigil or Provigil, but even better. So I still don't have an experience, full dosing any recreational drugs. I'm not against it. I'm actually more open to the idea now. Like things like ayahuasca are very interesting to me. After seeing, some of these documentaries and talking to some people that have done DMT or ayahuasca. Certainly it's all fascinating. It's all worth exploring potentially, but again, there are potential downsides. Like I said, it's not legal, and then you have to trust your source. So it's not necessarily easy to get, but it's definitely worth discussing, because I think directionally, even if you never try it, maybe it opens some other doors for some other supplements or medications or whatever to be discovered that can be helpful, going along these pathways, or, thinking along these lines of thought that, for a long time we, put aside as just terrible drug use. And, and LSD, like you can have these trips. There's my cat again.
Yep.
LSD, you can have these trips, that like supposedly like you'll be driving down the highway when you're 50 and like you have like this full-on trip and you crash your car and all this stuff that I thought was true that isn't true.
Yeah, that was the propaganda right there.
Right.
And yeah, I don't want to get off too derailed, but yeah, it really, as I've been researching some of this, and you start seeing that they knew that there are tons of benefits for instance, MDMA and PTSD, for instance, and psilocybin, and they knew that these drugs do have incredible medical uses, especially in the low doses, but especially for people who are in dire need of it. And the medical community has kind of covered this up. And it's finally like we have an awakening going on, in my opinion. And it's great to see people like yourself talking about that. And so I don't want to get like too upset or anything, but it's just kind of disappointing that we've been like spoon-fed this propaganda. And it seems like thanks to the internet and people who have been, gracious enough to experiment on themselves and to publish books, even when, it was probably a bad idea to publish said books, at least like politically or whatever, that, this great amount of information is coming out. And finally, we're getting further into these, these newer trials, at least like, and I'm not a huge MDMA proponent, but for the right people, it seems like I'm a huge proponent of it for the PTSD thing. And it's good to see this finally coming out, and like where the contrarians are kind of finally being proven right in a way, as long as, it's done professionally and with reason. And so, exactly. MDMA,
psilocybin, kratom have some benefits.
Scheduled, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A number of these compounds with PTSD, concussion / traumatic brain injury, past trauma like molestation,
right?
Severe depression. These scenarios have all seen benefit with the right guided help and this, medication or recreational drug administered in the right way, in the right form. So certainly, I agree. There's a lot of benefit for those people that are really hurting mentally. Can make a huge difference in their life. From getting over something like molestation, or getting over abuse, or getting over being concussed, and maybe having highly affected cognitive ability that you can gain back. That's a difference maker.
Yeah, it's crazy how like some of these compounds can just open new doors and help you compartmentalize things and shift your window a little bit. And so at what point for someone are they ready for LSD microdosing, for instance? Like, let's say I'm that CEO and I'm like, all right, this winter I got this crazy project, 6 months long. At what point of our conversation are you going to be like, hey, Mike, how about some LSD microdosing? Like, where do you put it in the strategy?
The other caveat I would throw in, if you're someone that's easily addictive,
right?
Somebody that's maybe in that type of position, the high achiever can be addicted easily. I think they're throwing a recreational drug that does have some level of abuse potential in, is something to consider.
Good call, right?
So it's just something to think about. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess I would, try all the other things, first, given its illegality and maybe difficulty to source. I would try the things I mentioned before. I mean, first getting all of these other things into place in your life that could make a much bigger difference.
Right.
Frankly.
We want to throw drugs at things right away. So you're right. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're still looking at your phone at night and you're, crushing monsters all day long, and you're, chasing your email all day long, and you're checking your, social network all day long, you got your push notifications going, and you got the dopamine rush every 30 seconds of checking, I mean, you're not in a good place, and you're not eating the right food. You're not hydrating well. You're not in a good place. So if you can get your nutrition aligned, your sleep aligned, your brain aligned with gratitude, with that mindful meditation, which, by the way, I guess I would say mindful meditation is being in the here and now.
Okay.
Being present, not thinking about the things that you've already done, or things that have happened in the past that frustrate you or whatever, or not thinking about what you have to do, what's down the line. Just being present. What is right now.
Well, if you're just sitting there doing nothing, what is right now? Then you're focusing on your breathing then, or?
Breathing, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And so you're not trying to have an out-of-body experience or any craziness or anything, just
focusing on your breathing.
Okay.
And if there's sounds, you don't have to necessarily phase out those sounds. Just you can be mindful of the sounds and think about those sounds.
Gotcha. And what if your animals come in, like the cat wants to get in on this? You just ignore it, or
be mindful of your cat.
Cool.
And
Okay.
be
Gotcha.
of your cat. Like just it's all like nothing's necessarily bad that's happening. Because you have to deal with these things as they come up, and you have to learn how to deal with scenarios as they come up. Nothing's ever perfect. I mean, no one can ever plan everything, and we never would want to, right? I mean, all the great things in life, all the joys are unplanned, and even like some of the things that are terrible that happen to you, that's where opportunity happens.
Absolutely, right.
So like almost everything that's important in your life is unplanned, but it's important to not be somebody who's chaotic for all the reasons that I gave before, to plan as much as you can, and minimize, as much distraction as you can, so that you can allow for great things to come into your life and be aware of them. That's the mindfulness, is be aware that how many great things are happening. There was a guy I listened to on Tim Ferriss that did an experiment where he lived biblically for a year, and he wasn't even, religious, but, he did all these things that were in the Bible. And one of them was, like growing a beard and, all this stuff. But I think another one was like praying ceaselessly. And, he said that, he was amazed when he did this, how many things went right all day long. The elevator worked, the food was, there for him to eat, all these things, the car turned on, and we focus on like the 2 things that don't go right. And meanwhile, there's 998 things that did.
Right.
And that's being, having gratitude for all these things. And that's allowing good things to even come into your life, or recognizing the good things that do. And that's a huge mental changer too. I mean, you want to feel focused, you want to feel happy. I mean, it all starts with your mindset. It's not just trying to get more out of your 5% or whatever you're using. It's like instead, it's like why not get more out of your existing brain? Why not feel happy? Why not be mindful? Why not be grateful? And you're gonna have a better life that way.
Right. Well, I think it's tough to tell someone, just be optimistic, or just focus on the 998 things that went right. Do you have a way of like flipping the script on someone when they're kind of focusing on the negative? Like, what do you say to that person who keeps getting caught down that negative rabbit hole?
Yeah, and that's someone I would say that, I would say read the 4 Agreements.
What was that again?
The 4 Agreements.
The 4 Agreements.
It's the most impactful book I've ever read.
Really? Okay, awesome. We'll note that, the 4 Agreements.
It's only $6 on Amazon. It's been a bestseller for tons of years. And it's 4 important rules. But I would say that they need to read that. I think the Code of the Extraordinary Mind is helpful as well.
Okay.
But I think people get off track with their relationships. People aren't appreciative of their relationships and how impactful they are, and they're throwing the negativity out, and they're kind of like I was talking about that guidance counselor negatively affecting me. He was projecting his insecurity. He was projecting his negativity on me.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's not me.
Right.
It's him. And so, I've said before, like, that the only power that people have is the power that you give them. And so, when these people are projecting negativity on you, you don't reciprocate. In that book, The 4 Agreements, he talks about it as black magic. It really has the power to do significant damage. Like, names and words can never hurt me or whatever. They definitely hurt you.
Right, yeah.
They definitely hurt you. They change your mind radically. You got to think about like the whole. You're a computer guy, right? Like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right. So like, what are you putting in your brain? What shows are you watching on TV? What are you looking at on the internet and your phone? A lot of the stuff, I've taken apps off my phone.
Right.
And I put things like there's an app called Curiosity on there. There's an app that I have called Futurism on there. There's an app for tech stuff called Engadget. Like there's all these different apps I have like that have like a lot of, if you follow my Facebook, you'll see like a lot of these cool articles It's because that's what I'm looking at instead of looking at like clickhole or clickbait or whatever.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
like all these things like Imgur and all these things like college humor. And I mean, humor is great, but like a lot of it has such a negative spin that it's really affecting you. And I feel like sarcasm is not always witty. And I grew up in New England, and I know sarcasm, but it's really a sign of like a bitter mind.
Yeah, too much of it is definitely, it wears you down big time. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel like so you have to just be aware that, I had someone, I don't know, can I swear on this?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen many of our videos, but yeah, what's up?
So, I had a period where a girl really broke my heart in college and said some things about me that were completely untrue, and it really just mentally, I was like, oh my God, someone can take my life away from me by saying words. This is another example of that. And it scared me that someone could just say something and then it's just a fact, and I could maybe even like go to jail. I could lose my, I could lose my career that I've worked so hard for. And it's like, you can just say something and it's real.
Yeah, it's a scary world.
And it's scary, but this girl that I was talking to, like after I became jaded for months and I was like treating girls like garbage, and I found that like, okay, this is what they want, because like, I started treating them like garbage and they started loving me. And I'm like, it's, like it just made me even more frustrated. And I talked to this one girl that, I was studying with that was very smart, very sweet. And I really thought a lot of her. And she looked at me in the eyes and said, you know what? You're an asshole. And in a way that, like, if anyone else said this, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, but the way she said this to me and the type of person she was, it, like, devastated me down to the core. And I was like, oh, my God, what have I become?
Right.
Like, this has all changed me, like, radically. And, you definitely can get affected by what's happening in your life. You just need to be aware of it, and you need to like see how you're affecting other people around you and how they're affecting you. So, I mean, I guess it comes full circle to all the stuff I've been talking about, how words are very impactful. Be it my own words to other people, in negative situations, like when I've been very rude to girls, and now in positive situations when I'm mentoring people, or like in my past, like when the doctor gave me advice and changed my life, or when that guidance counselor said something negative and, almost took away my dreams, or when this girl like almost took away my dreams. That, words are so impactful. So, that's the advice that I would give, that, someone be mindful of their words, start thinking about their words, and then, thinking about what's going into your brain. Who do you have around you? Like, not only like these apps or like what you're watching on TV or what you're doing, but who's around you? You're a product of like the 5 like closest people to you.
Yeah.
Like I can tell what type of person you are, kind of like you can tell what type of person someone is by like their like what's on their credit card statement. Same thing with like the 5 people that are closest to you. Are those people negative? Are those people draining you of your energy? Are those people, like you're always arguing with? There's drama. Are those people always saying terrible things about other people? Or are these people, challenging you? Are these people telling you to go for it? Are these people encouraging you, educating you, mentoring you? That's a totally different place to be. I know when I changed like the group of people around me, I mean, things just started happening like so fast.
Yeah.
You don't have a mentor, then you're missing out. And mentor doesn't mean older. Like I have a guy that like is a mentor to me, Ryan Lowry, and I'm a mentor to him. And it's a wonderful relationship, and he's in his mid-20s, but this guy is sharp. He's on his game.
His book is awesome.
Yeah, the Ketogenic Bible.
Yeah.
But he's also just a great, generous person, and his mind's in the right place, and his energy is through the roof. And it helps me, like when I talk to him, for me to stay grounded and focused and, do the right thing. And you just need those people around you.
That's great. Yeah, yeah, you just said a lot of awesome stuff there. To get back to the thing with the women, I think a lot of us have that situation at some point in our lives, and it's almost a good thing that you kind of see the world for what it is sometimes. But there's a moment, and I think for a lot of guys, kind of get shattered by something like that, and the way you react to it is huge, and it's almost everything, because there's a lot of people who stay jaded and bitter forever, and that's I've been through moments like that as well. And so what you said made complete sense and everything. The issue is that you eventually you need to find your way out of that tunnel, and yeah, there's a lot of ways to get reactions, both good and bad, from women, for instance. But a lot of people need to see that it's almost, it's the game, and it's if you're playing the game, that's really it's short-term effects, and yeah, you can get some short-term quote gains out of that, but at the same time, it's ineffective for any type of long-term healthy type of relationship. And at some point, I really hope that people understand that they can just be above the whole thing. And if you put out a confidence or enthusiasm, and that confidence comes from being really kick-ass in maybe one or two things that not everyone else is willing to focus on or whatever, and you can kind of exude a happiness where, if that guidance counselor would have said something negative to me at this point, I could just laugh at it. And that's kind of what I do to negativity, is just laugh it off, because I know how I can get to myself, but the general negativity out there no longer affects me, because I'm so buried into this hole over here, and everything else can just it just goes away. But I think a lot of people need to get themselves out of that hole, and it's sad to see people go through this anger phase and not come out of it. And I don't think it's necessary, because we do need quality, lasting relationships, whether it is with a man or a woman or multiple people. And so it's good that you made it out, because you've done so many positive things out there, and we're glad to see you around. So
thank you, I appreciate it.
But yeah, well, that was absolutely incredible. I really don't have a whole lot else to ask, and you've given me some things. Now, here's one thing I want to bring up, though, is you mentioned in podcasts like this one, often mention the word gratitude a lot. What is the whole thing on gratitude and gratitude journaling? Because I am definitely not doing it, and I don't know if I have that gratitude, or what do you mean by that? What is the mechanism?
I think everything starts with we have such a focus on what we don't have, mm-hmm. and we don't realize that we have it better than 99% of the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, we use these words like, oh, this food is horrible. Oh, this traffic's terrible. Think about the words you're saying.
You're in a box rolling from across the city for almost nothing.
It's a miracle, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And the fact that you have food, and you have a place to stay, and that you do have clothes, and you have medical care, and all these things they're just amazing, that are happening in your life, that you have relationships with people. You're not in sexual slavery.
No.
There's a lot of people in the world that are in the sex trade, that are in hell every day.
Yeah, people don't realize how slavery still highly exists in this world still.
Yeah, war zones.
Mm-hmm.
You think about being in North Korea, or there's so much that we have to be thankful for.
Right.
And we need to drop the hyperbole of all these things that are awful and terrible, and think about how those words are affecting our own brain and then the people around us. And it's just a sense of being thankful, and it gives you a sense of groundedness, and it allows you to get into a state of proper meditation. If we're agitated because we don't have things, we're agitated because we want more. And there's a certain level of drive that we should have, but we should also be centered enough to be appreciative of what we do have. To we can't always forego happiness for this destination that will never arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need to be there every day. We need to be happy where we are every day, but find, of course, like new challenges and new places to go to stimulate ourselves to grow to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just forego happiness the rest of your life, like thinking, oh, I'll get there like when I retire. And then when you retire, I mean, it'll never happen. You'll always be unhappy. And if it's about things, there'll always be someone with new and better things.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be about things. It's got to be about, the biggest study ever done was with Harvard. And it's, it started in the 20s, I think. And it's been going on for years. It started out with just men from two different sides of Boston, the poor side and the affluent side. And then it's actually gone on to track their families now with the wives and et cetera, several generations in now. But this study has consistently found that happiness and mortality and disease risk, the number one correlative for that is your relationships, the quality of your relationships. It's not like the food you eat, the exercise you have, like whether you're in a polluted area or not, or, these kinds of things. Certainly those are factors, but the number one thing is the quality of your relationships. So are you a good person to the people around you, and do you have the right people around you?
And what if you don't?
You got to change them. I mean, number one, like we talk about passion of like the right job, passion of like finding the right girl or whatever, or guy if you are a girl. I mean, this should come first and foremost of anything, like putting the right people around you. Because that's the only way you'll achieve success. Not only with business, but with your relationships, with having people that you can count on by, being happy day in and day out. You need to have the right people around you. And if you don't have the right people around you, then, move. I don't know, I would quit your job and move tomorrow. I mean, like, there's nothing like more important than finding the right people to put around you. Like, so when people you think it's crazy, like, oh, I left my job making $100,000 a year to, work for $25,000 a year at this, startup or this nonprofit, but, I'm passionate and I'm around the right people. Good for them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not about money. You can get by with a lot less, and the whole rest of the world is.
Right. That's minimalist living for sure.
And you'll find you're probably a lot less distracted. The whole mo money, mo problems thing is true. Like, the more money you have, the more things you buy, the more distracted you are, the more unhappy you tend to be. So
I agree. So back to the gratitude thing. Are you actually journaling that? Like, you just say, I'm gracious for this, and this today, or is that a weekly thing?
It can be things of like the prior day, or things that you're grateful for that are happening that day. It can be bigger picture things like where you're at in life, or that you do have those friends. It can be anything that enters your mind that you just say thank you for.
Okay. I think I'm gonna try this for a couple of weeks, make some changes, everything, and we'll be chatting, and so I definitely have a good few things to do. So I wake up typically 5:30, 6 a.m. And so at this time of the year, it is still dark out and everything. So I think before I do anything, a little bit of the mindful meditation is in order. I don't like to train that early because the home gym is here and I don't want to wake Jill up over in the other room. But once everyone gets going, I think I'm going to do the workout at the end of my fast. And, just take the minimal amount of whatever I'm up to at that point. I think I am going to go and buy a bunch of Alpha-GPC. I'm going to try 600 milligrams 3 times a day. I've taken some of the other stuff we've talked about, but that actually interests me the most because that's like a way higher dose than anything I've considered doing. So I think that'd be great. I am not yet going to do LSD microdosing, but is there a point where you're going to be and honestly, the honest truth is I'm not doing it because of availability, and I don't feel like getting lab tests and stuff on everything. It just turns into a whole other production. Yes, but is there a next generation thing that you're looking at doing, or is there a cycle that you're looking at getting into sooner than later, like jumping into LSD again? Or
well, I mean, I love the research on this. This all tracks back to BDNF, right? So it's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that. It's really cool because it not only protects like your neurons, the existing brain cells, but it actually promotes growth of new ones. And so there's so many things that are attributed to the death of your brain cells, but to do things that stimulate BDNF and therefore protect your brain is immense. So, there's all these things that we were talking about before, like, mindful meditation, the microdosed LSD, the Alpha-GPC, like these different things like are basically stimulating BDNF. And that's really important. I think I've been studying that pathway more and more, wanting to see like what compounds can, I guess, elicit the greatest amount for, the smallest dose,
Right.
And seeing what that can come from. So that's an area I'm looking, and I encourage other people to look for as well. I think Futureceuticals is a company that makes their supplier. They actually make that Spectra blend that I used in the Metabo Greens, but they make a coffee berry that I think Dave Asprey's using.
Yeah, I've read about when they were promoting that.
I think it stimulates BDNF like 44%.
Is there a way of testing that? Your BDNF levels?
Not easily. Right. Not in a way that a regular
brain
Joe
biopsy or something.
Yeah, like a regular Joe can do. But I think certainly things are experiential enough, and just. But there's a variety of the antioxidants are certainly helpful for that. Like they've shown EGCG, which is green tea, a compound, resveratrol from red wine. Pterostilbene from blueberries. These are things that are all helpful to stimulate BDNF. And, I think the drier the red wine, the better.
That's what everyone's been saying. I'm going to be testing that.
So, yeah. And so I drink like, a Cabernet or, a dry Pinot, 1 glass a night. I was just in Sardinia, which is a blue zone, an island off of Italy.
Yeah.
And they have red wine with their meals, lunch and dinner, and then they also have like a little espresso shot too. And I definitely think that those polyphenols and these compounds, there's something to this. That another aspect is going back to the relationship thing that we're talking about. They eat as a family at a table or friends at a table, and it's a 2-3 hour thing. Yes, even at lunch, it's like a 2-3 hour thing. They end up working a lot later because of that, and then they end up eating dinner a lot later. But for them, like, that meal is very important. It's a time of focused fellowship.
Focused fellowship. I like that a lot.
Yes. And so you don't have your phones out.
Right.
And you aren't distracted with your work. You're literally just talking about your day, like what's going on. Like, you care about people. You're interacting with people. And, just like I'm looking at you eye to eye, like that's so much better of an interaction than it would be, on Facebook or something. So
absolutely. And I think after this, we definitely need to get together and do this again in real life. I mean, we're 3.5 hours away from each other. So yes. Absolutely. But yeah, I've actually recently, the way my fasts are working out, and with Jill, I'm making the bacon and eggs, and we're eating together. And we've been sitting at the kitchen island. She's a stickler on the posture and proper breathing. It slows me down. I'm eating too much, but I haven't been touching the laptop or the phone during that. And it's kind of like I've been fasting, and then I work a little bit, and then that breakfast, which comes a little bit later than most people's, is like my first good break. So I just have everything off, and we actually focus on the food, focus on our nourishment, and just hang out and just are with each other. And we're not always like talking constantly, but we're in the moment eating our food together. And I think that's something that we're really going to stick with. So it's been a good experience doing that. So food has just come too easy for us anymore, and no one respects it. And it's like, that's our lifeblood, and we just like throw down a cereal bar and run out the door, and like that's just I just think that's a terrible way to start your day. So
yeah, exactly, and it's an opportunity for you to slow down, to be mindful of the food that you're eating and the people that you have around you, but to be, like you're saying, to be grateful for the nourishment, and to chew enough.
Absolutely.
I don't think we actually chew enough, and we don't get the satiety from the food that we should.
The digestion process starts right here, right at the first bite.
Right, exactly. Yeah, maybe even before that when you're looking at it and some of the enzymes are ramping up, right?
Yeah, right.
It's kind of some psychosomatic responses.
Absolutely.
But yeah, exactly. So that's great that you're going to be more mindful, and I think it's cool that you're taking on all these changes. I'm excited to hear how those affect you and what you think with your life.
Okay, so yeah, I've been through different meditational periods in my life, and things have gotten hectic lately, so I haven't, but it's crazy to say these things, but when I was meditating on the regular, weird things started happening to me. Like, I had a dream, and I had some prophetic dreams that were absolutely insane, where I had a dream that my brother got a promotion, and he was his boss's boss. And so he like jumped his boss in the ranks or whatever, his job. And I texted the family about that. And then a week later, my brother ends up telling me, hey, he did get a promotion. And it turns out that he is now the boss of his original boss from like 10 years ago. And so he did jump the ranks. It was over 10 years. And I was like, so a few things like that happened where I had dreams that actually were coming true. And it only was happening when I was like meditating and so I don't know what was going on, but I had some sort of reconnection with my family from across the country. And when I stopped meditating, like that crazy shit like that stops happening. So I want to get back to it because
that's a great point.
I don't even know. I can't explain it. It's just like I had dreams that kept happening.
Almost throughout the Bible, they use fasting to connect themselves to God, to have like a deeper relationship with God, to potentially grant this prayer that they're focused on. And then, like you said, with Buddhist monks and there's so many religions and ancient cultures that use fasting as a way to get into a deeper meditative state. And then certainly that meditation is a spiritual awakening. And your brain, with the alpha, type waves, that's what you're talking about. Like there's like that whole hallucinogen thing that happens with these drugs. You can do that without the drugs.
Yeah.
And if you read like Wim Hof, like who, talks to the Iceman, who talks about like the, cold submersion and the breathing techniques and all that stuff. He's been on Tim Ferriss. But like that type of breathing, you can achieve these type of things. And with meditation, you can achieve these type of things. Will it take a long time to figure out, especially in the state we're all in with being hyper distracted?
Yeah.
Yes. It would be very difficult. I'm sure it was difficult 1,000 years ago, let alone now. But it is interesting to think that we can tap into these type of things. And I tend to think of us as like, you can't think of like a cell as an individual thing, like outside of all the other cells in the body. And, a cell can communicate with other cells, and there's something to be said for like, I think what you experienced that I don't have the complete explanation for it, but like time is not necessarily linear. I mean, that's been definitely heavily debated, that it's just an instrument that we've created. And, there is some kind of connection that we all have to each other. I mean, like the mother that, knows when the baby's in trouble kind of thing, like these innate instincts that we have. I mean, there's something there, but we're so far removed from spirituality or that level of connectedness by being distracted all the time.
Would you at all blame being like in a carbohydrate fog to blocking some of that out? Like it seems like being in ketosis gets you a little bit, or having a fasted state gets you closer to those types of connectivities. And so if that's the case, then is it possible that that breakfast of cereal knocking us right out of any type of ketones that we might have been building up in the morning is holding us back at all? Like, do you go that far at all? Because I do, but
yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's not necessarily. I mean, certainly people that are hypercaloric, that are not exercising enough, that are insulin insensitive, carb can definitely, and high glycemic carbs on top of it. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster for sure. And they're already in like compromised states in terms of pre-disease states, or already in disease states like metabolic syndrome. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, like I said, I mean, almost all these cultures, fasting was the way to enhance spirituality.
Yeah.
And when your body, not even just the glucose ketones thing, but like, what about like your body just wasting energy on metabolism and digestion and excretion? All those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So, when your brain has, because being in an alpha state uses up a lot of brain energy.
Oh yeah.
So it's a dramatic difference. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting idea. I mean, who knows where it all goes, and if we'll ever have the answers. But
no, I get a little bit conspiratorial sometimes, so that was my plug into that. I don't need to go any further. But yeah, so I know your time is super valuable. I thank you so much. The one thing we haven't done, and we haven't plugged enough of your products though. Obviously, you've mentioned the Metabo greens and everything, and I actually was a fan of greens, and being back on the keto diet and being on less fruits, I'm still doing the vegetables. Being on less fruits, it makes me think that maybe I should get into that. You mentioned that yours actually tastes good. And so that's one thing that I haven't always experienced with the green powder.
And when we were formulating it, a lot of them, my term was dirty fish tank.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They tasted, and this one tastes really good, really enjoyable. I look forward to it every day, and it's, some of the ones that I found that did taste good were because they were all fruit powders and sugar. And this is actually greens, and that spectra, like I said, it has chlorella and spirulina and a lot of great stuff in it, and it tastes great and it works. I mean, the level of alertness I get from it is marked. One of my, I guess, other darling products that I've formulated, IC5 from BioTrust. It's blood sugar product.
Yeah, that's got the serious berberine in it, or
yeah, exactly. It's
got. So can you take that as a keto dieter? I've been afraid of tanking my glucose any more than I need to, or
no, I use it on keto, because berberine in and of itself can get you into a deeper state of ketosis. Cool. But the nice thing is, if you're cheating, sometimes you can cheat and still stay in ketosis.
Right. Okay.
Which I can't even tell you, so many people have given me stories with their testing and using IC5. So it's really cool. But
I'll make a video. Okay.
Also, aging is correlated to glycation. So that blood glucose damage, that's happening to cells, that, when you're taking something like the berberine that's in there, the cinnamon, the zychrome, it's got a lot of cool compounds in there that really help with all that. I mean, it's anti-aging, so it's, helping with your SERT genes, helping with the telomere length, helping with glycation. I can tell you that the two most important things that if I was going to tell you I could judge your health on, if I was going to check two labs, it would be CRP and hemoglobin A1C. And no doctor checks those, period, ever. And I could, of all the labs that they ever check, this is inflammation and blood glucose, glycation level.
So normally I go to health-test-direct to get my tests, and I'm almost positive they have HbA1c, but I'm wondering if they have
CRP.
CRP.
Yeah, that's C-reactive protein or peptide. Yep.
They do. Okay, is it cardio CRP? Is what I see here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine.
But there's an arthritis panel that has CRP. Okay. I'm gonna have to. I'm due for a testosterone test. Since I've been on keto for a few months, I haven't done a full lipid panel or cholesterol, all that. I'm kind of curious. Not that I think it's gonna stop me anyway, but even if I don't love the numbers, but we'll put them up. I think what we'll do is we'll put together a blood panel, and I'd love to see that and see if you can tell if I'm healthy or not.
let me throw one more in there.
Yeah,
then.
Sure.
That's as a caveat. I mean, I think you should check your vitamin D3, but. I think you should also, if you're going to look at your lipids, don't look at the calculated cholesterol that the doctors always order with HDL, LDL. You want to get an NMR test or a VAP test. And those tests will look at the subfractions.
Is that more about the molecule size than the quantity, or?
Exactly, the size and type. It's not calculated, it's actual. So
okay.
So you can actually look at LDL is not the bad cholesterol. It's not unhealthy. Not at all. Actually, like higher LDL can be correlated with longer life. Total cholesterol is correlated with longer life. It's the very low density, the small dense LDL that's correlated with heart disease, and that's the only one that's correlated with heart disease. So the only way that you can tell that is just you going up in LDL isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually potentially a good thing. I mean, there's Eskimos that have 600 cholesterols and no incidence of heart attack.
Right. Yeah.
You have to
That's
look
good.
at its small, dense LDL.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large, fluffy LDL that can rise with ketogenic dieting that's actually, again, like cardioprotective.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to not just get like this basic lab and kind of dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe we'll put that together sometime. When I did my last year's test, it was just a standard test. My cholesterol level was actually like not dangerously low, but I was right on the bottom of normal. And so just kind of curious where that all ended up. But
Well, statins, like which they usually put you on, can put you dangerously low. And you think about cholesterol is like the basis for your, you want to talk about brain health. It's definitely not being on statins. Cholesterol has a lot to do with your brain cells, as well as like it's really the grandfather hormone, if you will, like to all these steroid hormones, like your progesterone, testosterone, estrogen. All these things are traced back to cholesterol. They have a cholesterol base to them. So, if you get on statins, it's going to lower your cholesterol, which puts you at more cardiovascular risk. Which is ironic, and which is why I hate these drugs.
Sick care.
It's impairing your brain function. It's impairing your hormonal function. It's using up the depleting CoQ10. Leaving you with muscle cramps, spasms. Like it's not beneficial to be on. There's a lot better paths to go down. So
it's sad. What are we gonna do? Okay, final question.
Yeah.
It's like how do we reach these kids kind of thing, but like, okay, let's say I got $100 million, or let's go $100 million that I'm going to give to you. What are you going to do? Like, how do we change this? What's our big picture?
Wow.
I mean, it seems like we're all fighting a lot of little fights and everything, and that's cool, but like, is there going to be some sort of shockwave that we can have?
Yeah, I think if I was to do one thing, it would be to attack all the special interest groups and lobbies that have so much influence over our government, like big pharma, big food, big tobacco,
big alcohol,
guns. I don't know, just down the line, like there's so many just powerful voices that aren't our own or aren't the truth, that are just, pro-capitalism. And I'm certainly not against capitalism. I'm definitely for it. But, it's just there's so many of these scenarios that are not being acted on our best interests.
Right, yeah. They're using false data or...
Yeah, the false data, exactly.
It's not based upon any truths. Like
there was one
the sugar lobby.
The other day with Monsanto, that there was data from this association, I forget, I think International Research Association on Cancer or something like that, and they found in 2015 that Roundup glyphosate is most likely a carcinogen.
Oh geez, yeah.
And it seems pretty obvious to most people, but that's what they were finding. And then Monsanto was paying to do these studies and doing the write-ups, and then they were going to pawn them off as someone else's data in a journal, and not even put that they funded the data, that they wrote study, design, the whole thing. And these emails got leaked, and now there's a class action lawsuit and now they're saying, well, it was, it's going to be independent, we're going to be unbiased. Of course.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure, they'll be unbiased. But it sucks that all that's out there, that Coca-Cola pays for these studies on this and that, and all these lobbyists are just, they have the politician's ear. The politician our congressman spends 7 hours of their 8-hour day getting money.
Right.
Calling for money. They work 1 hour a day.
That's a problem.
that's a problem.
So yeah, with the glyphosate, it almost seems like there's an awareness. Thank God for the internet, because there is information is becoming free, even though there's a lot of not censorship, but crowding out of the truth, perhaps. And so it seems like the glyphosate thing is kind of becoming more and more clear to the people who at least are looking for it, and that's a step in the right direction. It's not there for like just everyone, but if you start digging, you will find what you need to find. And that's one reason I've loved the keto diet, is because this kind of removed me from the whole glyphosate chain as it is. I know that there's a couple very well trusted testing companies that will test the food stuff for glyphosate. And so I was thinking about throwing in some of my own money just to take some of the quote organic bread versus a standard piece of bread or loaf of bread or whatever, and get a serving and see if there really is a difference in the amount of glyphosate. And that wouldn't cost me a ton of money. So I eventually want to do that. And
I'm researching some of that testing now for like even the supplements I've been working on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really would like to get certifications on that. I've been looking at it for several years, and now there's actually a few companies that are talking about doing certifications. So
interesting. Yeah, that's an important thing. Seems like we go down a lot of the same rabbit holes, because we were talking about one on Facebook recently, which may for another whole podcast and everything, with water quality and everything. And I finally sent my water quality lab test in, so our subscribers are going to see the reviews with data on my water softening and the reverse osmosis system. So I'm really getting into this stuff. I love the biohacking. I love the testing and the awakening. It feels like it's happening, and it feels like we're realizing that what we were told is good or bad for our body isn't necessarily always true, and the data is finding its way out there. And so I really appreciate that you're leading the charge on that. But we definitely need to keep in touch with some of the little side projects we're doing, because it seems like some of the stuff I start to research is some of the stuff that you've already been reading about for years, and vice versa. So I definitely want to do this again, and obviously really appreciate your time. I'm trying to sign up for like the fourth time today, but we keep bringing up great stuff. But Shawn, it's been absolutely incredible. We're gonna have to plug some of your BioTrust stuff. I'm gonna have to test out these supplements you've talked about.
If people can go to zonehalo.com and sign up on my website, and then go to Zone Halo with Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook, Shawn Wells. Yeah, that would be great.
Yes. Yeah, add Shawn on Facebook. Remove one of your friends that's been a little bit too much political. Trust me, the trade-off is well worth it, and it's actually like made me semi look forward to going on Facebook once in a while. But
yeah, and maybe we can have people, since they're listening, turn on post notifications for Zone Halo and PricePlow.
There we go.
And then on Facebook, you can actually you have up to 15 people that you can put first in your feed if you go into the settings. And I've done that with some of my heroes that I talked about earlier, and of course PricePlow to keep track of the cool supplements coming out. So
thank you.
Maybe people could do that for us too.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe real quickly, can you run through your follow list then? Who are the top ones that you want to be on top of? Like Lowry.
It's the people I was mentioning before. Yeah, exactly. Jacob Wilson, who's the muscle PhD, he's a very good friend of mine. Ryan Lowry, best friend of mine. Dave Asprey, Tim Ferriss, Ben Greenfield, like I talked about before.
Right.
I like Adele Musa's content with Subversity.
Yep.
There's another one I love that's really more on Instagram, YLM Science. They have some really cool like infographics on exercise studies.
Cool.
I think, and then like I said before, I really like these apps too, Curiosity and Futurism. But I have those as separate apps, but I have them on Facebook as well. They just put out tons of great content. And then there's another one called, I think it's Interesting Shit. And it's not the best name, but it is, it's another thing kind of like Curiosity with just cool science stuff. Like I love hearing about, some new sea creature that they've found, or because all of it like makes me think, like when there's people say, oh, you need animal protein to like really kick ass, to be an optimal muscle protein synthesis. I think, well, there's a gorilla that is only eating plants and it's the strongest animal and could rip your arms out of your socket.
Right.
Or, people say, oh, keto makes you slow. I'm like, well, the cheetah seems to be pretty fast. It's like, I just like looking at like the animal kingdom sometimes, and like it makes me, think outside the box, with all these kinds of things, like what is possible and what's not. And, what's maybe genetic and what can be turned on or turned off, or what's dormant now, like.
And that's interesting shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like bioluminescence, like these creatures at the bottom of the sea that can light, their own path, or these thermophiles that are like in like the volcanic heat vents, and it's like should be way too hot for life to exist, but there's life. It's all fascinating stuff. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, I always like to say life as we know it, because who knows what can be really out there. Just because we require carbon or whatever, doesn't mean that everything does. So
that's true. Great point.
All right, great. Well, Shawn, once again, thank you so much for your time. We're going to try to make some links up here. I'm going to probably try to rush this up onto YouTube, but it's good. I don't know. We're looking at almost 2 hours we've been on this Skype call, so this is going to be like an hour, 50-minute long podcast here, and it was incredible. And so I hope a lot of people got a lot out of this. Please follow Zone Halo and subscribe to our channel. We will be having more of these, and at some point, with this channel, we're taking turns doing the podcast, and CJ, Robert, and I are going to get together. But once a month, I will be here to try to interview someone that's got as much knowledge as Shawn, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime too soon. But yeah, we're going to definitely need to get you back on and talk about stuff. Let's go drill down into another rabbit hole and see what happens when we come up. So thanks again, Shawn.
Good. Thank you. Really appreciate it. See ya.
Take care.